Rabbits breed like rabbits, right? Wrong. I am sure you have come across this statement, a common statement that is usually misplaced, and it is possible that this rather encouraging statement has lured up-and-coming young farmers into rabbit farming. But if one sits and asks experienced rabbit farmers, they will be quick to point out the mighty task ahead of breeding or reproduction stage. And very soon, these young farmers realize quickly that rabbit breeding, like rabbit, is way far from the truth. Now, that statement fails to communicate the intense background work and behind the scene activities, like synchronization effort of the does and the bucks. Does are ready, bucks are not, and vice versa. The number of bucks to keep to ensure consistent production, and importantly, time, patience that is required to see the process through. Now, at Ace Farm, we bring you the information as we have experienced it. And as such, join us to explore 3 critical tips that will ensure that your rabbit will live up to the expectation of breeding like rabbit. Hi everyone. You are once again welcome to Ace Rabbit Farm as we explore 3 tips to get your animals into an efficient breeding regime. Okay, so these tips are relevant, especially if you are doing mid-sized commercial rabbit farming, and importantly, you have a pending order. You really have a pending order. Let's say your local restaurant is asking for 20 meat rabbits every month, and you have between 30 to 60 doe production units. How would you ensure that you are able to fulfill this order? So this topic is really relevant. The reason being as simple that rabbits don't breed like rabbit, especially if you're using the cage system, and especially if you have to house your animal, you have to synchronize the production, you have to ensure that the bucks and the does are ready to produce on time for you to grow these animals to 3-month-old, 2.5 kg, ready for market. 20 animals every week. That is the order. So looking at this, it is not an easy, because now you've got an objective to achieve, and you've got your livestock that you need to breed according to this objective. And as you can see, many farmers have done that, and you put the buck and the doe together and nothing happens. Then frustration kicks in. Meanwhile, you have scheduled 10 different animals to go through breeding. And therefore, this topic is really relevant at this stage to help us go through, navigate this difficult task. How do we look at 3 critical tips that is going to help us to overcome the difficulties in breeding? Now, watch this video to the very last end. The reason being that we are trying to experiment with a new concept. Okay, and that concept really is where we believe, look, we've been doing this for the last 4 years, right? 4 years. And every day we improve in our methodology. So watch to the last end as we propose a formula that we believe is going to really help us solve this problem. Okay, so I look forward to your comment. If you are new to this channel, please, give us thumbs up, subscribe, share with your fellow farmers. Send your comments so that we can learn from you. We can interact on different levels and grow together. So the beautiful part of rabbit farming really is when your doe has littered, 8, 10, 12 bunnies at a time. What a joy. And especially if you manage to grow all these 10, 12 bunnies into become a production unit. Amazing stuff. What a blessing. So these tips that we go through today should, set us up for us to experience some of this joy and beautiful, bountiful production on a small livestock farm. Okay, look, let us establish a couple of principles before we go into the discussion. Let us establish a couple of principles. Our commercial rabbit farms are done in hatches or cages, right? And not in a colony system. Okay, look, it's an opportunity. We're going to be exploring that topic as well, cages versus colony, especially in the tropics. We're going to be exploring that topic. But for now, we are using the cage system. And therefore, this discussion is based around the cage system, okay? Now, these animals are in cages, and therefore, it is the absolute responsibility of the farmer to supply all the requirement to sustain the animal. I'm talking about the feeding, I'm talking about the clean water that they're going to be drinking, I'm talking about vitamin, minerals, safe, clean environment, less noise, less predators, the general good health and welfare of the animal. And all these activities are done routinely, same time, every time, continuously. So the farmer therefore becomes a critical catalyst to the process of production. So you can immediately see, we're talking about discipline with time, we're talking about being consistent with your activities, because that will go a long way to help your animal become productive. Okay, now that we've gone past this little principles behind us, let us jump straight into tip number 1. So for tip number 1, it's all about feeding your animal or your production stock appropriately. Look, I'm sure you have heard that fat does or bucks do not breed properly. Look, we have found out that this is true, especially with our bucks, okay? Several academic suggestions or written article that low sperm concentration within the buck due to fat, okay? And this fat therefore affect your buck negatively in terms of fertility. So basically, low sperm concentration. We can resolve this by giving them a balanced diet, by giving them just sufficient, not overfeeding them. Okay, we are not feeding them for the market. We are feeding them to be reused for production. Therefore, just feed sufficiently to sustain the buck. Now, because we produce our own next generation breeders, we need to be careful with selection, but more so to be careful with the feeding regime. Rabbits are generally broilers, right? Now, these animals are bred for meat production, which is quick growth, and it is not, if not carefully done, we will end up letting our bucks be overweight, and that really is not good for production, okay? So we all now know that excess weight or fat inhibits production. Okay. So let's move on to tip number 2. With tip number 2, it's more about the time to breed. Guys, the time to breed is what is very, very important here. So let's start with new does and new bucks. Now, depending on the breed that you are using for your production, we will recommend between 6 to 8 months for the does, okay? And for the bucks, we will suggest 9 months. This is purely based on the fact that we want our does to be fully matured, reduce this teenage pregnancy stuff, because we are also raising these animals to be on the farm for at least 2 to 3 years. And because of that, we are thinking of longevity. And because of that, we want the does to be fully matured. Now, also for a mature doe, there is a likelihood of this mature doe taking good care of the litter of bunnies. And so for this reason, we prefer to go between 6 to 8 months for the does and 9 months for the bucks. Now, that is for the new does and new bucks. Now, when it comes to an existing doe that has already littered, look, it is recommended that you wait for 35 days, okay, before the next breeding cycle. We at Ace Farm, we would like to go at least 40 days. Now, there is 2 purposes to this decision, okay? The first one really is that it gives the doe sufficient time to recover. Now, the second reason is that it allows the bunnies to be fully matured before you take them away from their mother. Now, what this does is that it reduces the shock to their system, because if you notice, there is also a lot of death that happens in the bunnies during the weaning session. And therefore, we are thinking if we leave them a little bit longer with their mother, they then become totally independent to be on their own. Okay. Now, tip number 3, you need to check for these signs. And look, you can see the pictures are speaking volumes here. Okay, first thing first, the doe will be showing signs of restlessness. That is very good. As soon as you go closer to touch it, you see it, behaving and jumping and, and so forth. That is one good sign. The second is to check the weight. For the breeds that we are using, we are looking at 3 kg to 3.5 kg. Okay. The third is now to check the vulva. Okay, pink is good. Look at the 3 pictures. You can see the 2 there are very, very good and basically ready. But the third one there is just pale. Okay, and that is a very poor sign of ready to be crossed. All right, now let's move on to the bonus material. So now on the bonus material, guys, now this is a concept that I am actually 100% certain that a farmer out there or many farmers out there might have tried this already. And so there is, however, not sufficient information. As I was asking around, as I was searching around to discuss this topic, I could not gather information. But here it is. Here is how it goes. Now, if you have, upon discussing this concept, if you have already tried this, please, by all means, share your comments so that we can learn from you, okay? Now, basically, our suggestion here on the bonus material is about a mixed colony system. Now, the colony system is created only for the bucks. So if you have 10 bucks on your production farm, you create 10 separate colony system. A decent size of a farm, of a colony system per buck. We are only talking about the bucks, okay? So on the floor with, hidden holes, nooks, where these animals can basically a bigger space for the buck to be able to exercise and remain fit, because that will definitely reduce the fat level. Okay, that's the first part. So when it is time for production, you then introduce your does to this permanent fixed location, which is in the colony system. You leave your doe in there for a day or 2. Now, this will ensure, of course, you might want to observe for, the various falls, but you don't have time for that. If you do have time for that, by all means, but you really want to observe and leave them in there to bond, to create some relationships, and especially once a doe is successfully crossed, the doe does not really allow for more crossing. Okay, so I'm comfortable in giving that a shot. I'm comfortable in using that as a way of really increasing the production. So it is a concept right now. We've not done it yet at Ace Farm, but this is definitely going to be a key experiment for us to do. And for this reason, we're putting that in as a bonus material just to see how that is going to pan out. So if you do have the capacity, if you do have the land, if you do have the space, by all means, go ahead. And if you are facing the same challenges as we are facing when it comes to reproduction, then by all means, go ahead, experiment with it, and then share your outcome with everybody. So guys, in summary, basically, we see that the farmer is really a critical catalyst, right, to this successful production that we are looking for. Okay, just take a note that we did not add any chemicals, any herbs. We did not even speak about artificial insemination, okay, because of the size of the farm. Okay, however, we focus on appropriate feeding, physical observation, and of course, using animals of the right age and animals that have well rested. For me, those 3 items are like the key ingredient to a successful production. And so at the end of the day, the farmer is the key element, the catalyst that ensures that there is a successful production. Guys, it all boils down to a farmer with diligent approach to his or her farm routines and management. Until I see you again, guys, Keep farming. Keep farming.